You're walking home. It's late, you think you're alone. But someone's watching. Someone is waiting. And for these women, the nightmare was real. These are not ghost stories, not movies. These are true, chilling encounters with strangers, uninvited, unexpected, and unforgettable. From elevators that never opened, to strangers hiding beneath cars. From a drugged drink at a crowded bar to a silent man watching you through your peephole. These 10 women lived through moments that still haunt them, and now you will too. This is 10 true horror stories of women and strangers, real events, real fear. Story 1. The drink that almost ended me. A carnival night gone wrong. It was supposed to be just another fun night, a rainy evening packed with music, laughter, and flashing lights. Every year, my small hometown hosted a wild carnival between January and March, where the streets overflowed with joy and alcohol. It was tradition. And like every year, I joined with my parents, some close friends, and my boyfriend. It was wet, cold, and chaotic, but I loved it. I'd had a few drinks, nothing crazy, just enough to feel light and happy. The streets were slippery. People were dancing in the rain, umbrellas flipping in the wind, and I felt alive. Later that night, we stepped into a crowded bar, the kind of place where everyone pushes through the noise for a drink and a bit of heat. I ordered a beer and joined the group in the back, where everyone wanted to smoke. The bar was loud, the kind of loud where you feel your pulse in your ears. At some point, the beer kicked in, and I needed to pee. I turned to my boyfriend and Dad, both seated at our table, and handed over my drink. "Keep an eye on this," I said, half joking. They nodded, and I made my way to the bathroom, brushing past swaying bodies and damp jackets. When I came back, my drink was right where I left it. I didn't even think. I picked it up, took a long sip, and laughed at some joke my friend was telling. That's the last full memory I have. What followed was not like being drunk. It was like being drowned, slowly and quietly. I remember fragments. I couldn't lift my arms. My legs wouldn't respond. My vision blurred until faces were shapes, and lights bled into one another. My head felt like it was floating outside my body. Everything sounded muffled, like I was underwater. I tried to speak, but I couldn't form words. I blacked out. They told me later that I was barely responsive, that I looked terrified, eyes wide, swaying, mumbling nonsense. I don't remember being dragged home by my dad and boyfriend. But that's what happened. They had to carry me through the city like dead weight. It was only 7 p.m. The next thing I knew, it was morning. I'd slept 14 hours straight. I thought I had just gotten too drunk. I wanted to believe that. But my friend said no, that something was seriously wrong, that my behavior that night was terrifying to witness, and I hadn't drunk enough to be like that. That's when I realized I had been drugged. And the worst part? I wasn't alone. I was surrounded by people I trusted. It shouldn't have happened, but someone had slipped something into my drink right under our noses. Later, I remembered something that made my blood run cold. Right before we left the bar, my boyfriend, my dad, and I had talked to 2 strangers, 2 young guys. They were friendly, almost too friendly. They asked weird questions like, "Are you single? And how old are you?" It felt harmless at the time. Now I know it wasn't. They smiled as they poisoned me. Even though nothing worse happened, no assault, no kidnapping, I was changed. Since that night, I can't drink alcohol like I used to. Even the smell makes me nauseous. The fear lives in my gut. The fear of what could have happened if I had been alone, if my family hadn't been there, if I'd made it home with someone else. So I'm telling you this. Be careful. Don't leave your drink. Don't trust a friendly face too quickly. And if you're a man reading this, don't ever do this to a woman. It's not funny. It's not harmless. It's terrifying. I'm lucky to be here, but someone else might not be. Story 2. Under the car, a night I'll never forget. That Friday night started just like any other. The high school football game had ended with a win, and we were all on a high. I had just gotten my own car, and every week I'd drive my younger brother and 2 cousins to the game. Afterward, it was tradition to hit up a fast food joint, grab greasy fries, and laugh about the night's plays. It was all routine, comfortable, familiar. By 10:30 p.m., I was pulling up to the last stop, my cousin's house. His side of the car faced directly toward their driveway. As he gathered his backpack and phone, I glanced over at the house out of instinct. Just like my parents had taught me, always wait until you see them get inside safely. My mom had drilled into my head 100 times. At first, I didn't notice anything strange, but then something caught my eye. Movement beneath the car in the driveway. Squinting through the dim streetlight, I saw two legs sticking out. Someone was under the car. "Wait," I said, my voice low but urgent, my hand instinctively reaching across the seat to stop my cousin from opening the door. "Is that your dad under the car?" He froze. We both stared. The person wasn't moving much, just there. My cousin immediately called his dad. "Hey, are you outside working on the car right now?" he asked, eyes wide. A pause. Then he shook his head at me. "No, he's inside, watching TV." That was all I needed to hear. I threw the car into gear and slowly drove to the other side of the street. Now we had a clearer view. The legs were still there, but they twitched. Whoever it was trying to crawl out, slowly, clumsily, like they were drunk, or worse. We both got out of the car cautiously. I had my phone in one hand, 911 already typed out. My cousin shouted, "Hey, who are you?" No answer, just rustling. Then finally, a slurred voice, "I'm just resting. Just resting. It's cold. Man." The man was clearly intoxicated. His clothes were dirty, wet from the grass and rain. He reeked of cheap alcohol. A large tattered backpack lay nearby, partly hidden in the bushes. Turns out, he was a homeless man. No weapons, no threats, just someone looking for shelter. But still, he had crawled under my aunt's car at night, in the shadows, just a few feet from her front door. My hands trembled as I dialed the non-emergency police number, not because he was dangerous, but because I realized how easily this could have gone differently. What if my cousin had gotten out without noticing? What if my aunt had started her car the next morning? Or what if the man hadn't been so harmless? The police arrived quietly. They knew him, said they'd spoken with him before. He was mostly harmless, just confused and tired. They gently led him away. But something inside me changed. That night, that false sense of security I had, being in a good neighborhood, doing something routine, familiar, it shattered. Because real fear doesn't always come with a weapon or a scream. Sometimes it waits quietly under a car. Story 3. The Smiling Host, a house that watched us. It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. 1 month in Europe, hopping city to city, staying with local host families, and soaking up the culture. My best friend and I were paired together. For the whole trip, we were both 17, wide-eyed and excited, ready for adventure. The first stop had gone great. We stayed with a sweet old lady who made us laugh and gave us hot chocolate every night. But when we landed in our second city, things shifted. As soon as the plane touched down, I got an email from our next host, a man named John. It was a single word. Hello. No warmth, no welcome. Just that. I told myself not to overthink it. A cab dropped us off at his house, a gray, tall, narrow building with ivy crawling up the bricks. When the driver knocked on the door, it opened slowly, and John stood there. He didn't say a word. He didn't smile. He didn't greet us, just stared. I awkwardly said hi and thanked him. He didn't respond, just waved the driver away and opened the door wider, motioning us in, like we were dogs he didn't care for. We stepped inside, suitcases clunking on the wooden floor. Still, he said nothing. Then, without any introduction, he started barking rules at us in a cold, robotic voice. Shoes off. No noise after 9. You break anything, you pay. No Spanish. Not even between yourselves. English only. We stood frozen. He hadn't even told us where the bathroom was. Our room was on the 3rd floor, a narrow staircase with creaky steps and yellowed wallpaper. We hauled our luggage ourselves. He didn't even tell us which door was ours. We had to guess. Dinner that night was worse. He cooked in silence while we sat at the table like guests at a haunted house. His 2 teenage daughters sat across from us, not saying a word, their eyes never quite meeting ours. Then he spoke. Which one of you is vegetarian? I raised my hand timidly. He scoffed. Ridiculous, you'll die 10 years earlier. Weak blood. He handed me a bowl of 5 wilted lettuce leaves. We barely touched our food. That's when he started asking questions, ones that made my skin crawl. How much money did you bring? Where do you keep it? Do you come from wealthy families? We lied. Said we didn't know. We were students. He just nodded, slowly. That night, in our tiny attic room with barely any light, we whispered to each other in Spanish, terrified. He might be listening. We weren't sure why. But something about that house didn't feel just awkward. It felt watched. We noticed there were no mirrors but several old paintings. And behind one of them in the hallway, we swore we saw a small black lens. A camera. The next night we slept with chairs against the door. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us slept. Every time the wooden stairs creaked, we held our breath. By the 4th night, we both begged our teacher to move us. She didn't ask why. She just looked at us and said, "You're not the first." We never knew what John's deal was. But sometimes I still dream about that house. The cold air, the silence, the way his eyes followed us, like he knew something we didn't. Sometimes the scariest places aren't haunted by ghosts. They're haunted by people who are still alive. Story 4. Under the car. It was supposed to be just another regular Friday night. Back in college, after finally getting my own car, I developed a tradition. Every Friday, I'd pick up my younger cousins and my brother and take them to our old high school's football games. We were all huge fans of the sport, and there was something comforting about those cool, noisy stadium nights. Games usually ended around 9:30 p.m. after grabbing some fast food. A ritual. It'd be close to 10:30 by the time I started, dropping everyone off. Now, one thing my parents always drilled into me: never drive away until you see them walk inside safely. It wasn't just about making sure they had their keys. My mom had a deeper fear. What if someone dangerous was lurking nearby, hiding in the bushes or behind the shadows? That night, I dropped my last cousin off at his house. His seat, the front passenger side, faced directly toward the driveway. As he was gathering his things, I casually glanced toward my aunt's house, just across from where we parked. That's when I saw him, a figure lying under my aunt's car. For a moment, I thought it was my uncle working on the vehicle. But something felt off. There were no tools, no flashlight, no sound, and it was 10:30 p.m. Why would he be fixing a car in the dark, in the cold? I gently pulled my cousin back into the car and whispered, "Do you see that? Is that your dad?" His face went pale. I don't know," he replied, pulling out his phone to call his father. While he dialed, I slowly drove across the street so we could get a better view. The man was still there, completely under the car, only his legs visible. I rolled down my window and called out, "Hey, are you okay down there?" No response. The man started to shift, uncoordinated and slow, like he was waking from a trance. He slurred something unintelligible. As he began crawling out from under the car, I stepped out of mine, standing my ground, as my heart pounded like a drum in my chest. Finally, he emerged, a disheveled man, maybe in his 40s, dirty clothes, glossy eyes, drunk, completely unfamiliar. He wasn't my uncle. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had been hiding under a parked car, waiting, watching. My cousin's father answered the phone, confused and concerned. We told him what was happening. The man muttered something again, still swaying on his feet. I didn't know what his plan was. Maybe he was just homeless, looking for shelter. Maybe he had worse intentions. We'll never know. But here's what I do know. Had I just driven off without checking, had my cousin walked up alone in the dark, it could have been a very different story. Sometimes evil doesn't jump out at you. Sometimes it waits. Story 5. The host family. At first, everything felt like a dream come true. A month-long student exchange program across Europe. New cities, new cultures, and most excitingly, we would be staying with local host families to fully immerse ourselves. My best friend and I were paired together, and our first host, a sweet old lady, was wonderful. She made us feel safe at home. But when we arrived at the next destination, everything changed. We had emailed our new host, a man named John, a week before, just to introduce ourselves. He never replied. Odd, but not alarming. We assumed he was busy. Then just as we landed, I got an email. One word. Hello? Then another. Let me know when you get on the bus. Cold, robotic, but we shrugged it off. A cab dropped us off at his house, and the moment we stepped out, we felt it. He glared at us like we were intruders. No greeting, no smile, just silent, piercing eyes. Even the cab driver seemed uncomfortable as he drove away. John opened the door, said nothing, and motioned us in. Before we could even take our coats off, he blocked us in the narrow entryway and listed the rules. Not in a welcoming way, but like a warning. Don't break anything. You will pay for every scratch. His tone was ice. His eyes didn't blink. He told us to take off our shoes, then pointed upstairs and muttered, "Your room's on the 3rd floor." That was it. No help with bags. No directions. Just vanished down the hall, leaving us dragging heavy luggage up a tight, unfamiliar staircase in silence. We tried to stay positive. Maybe he was just awkward. That illusion shattered at dinner. We sat stiffly at the table as he cooked for us, and his 2 daughters, both silent, eyes on their plates. He turned to me. "Which one of you is vegetarian?" I raised my hand. He scoffed. "You know not eating meat shortens your life by 10 years, right? Stupid choice." Then he handed me a bowl with 5 tiny lettuce leaves. Nothing else. I forced a thank you, even though my stomach twisted in discomfort. Then came the questions. "How much money did you bring? Where do you keep it? Are your parents rich?" We laughed nervously, trying to deflect, but it felt like he was studying us, sizing us up. Then the rule that truly unnerved me: don't speak Spanish in my house ever, even when you're alone. We tried to reason. Spanish was our mother tongue. We were fluent in English, of course, but why forbid us from speaking our own language? He didn't explain, just stared. That night, in the tiny, creaky bedroom at the top of the house, we whispered in the dark. Something was wrong. The next day, we avoided being home as much as we could. We explored the city, stayed late at school, ate out, but we still had to sleep under his roof. And every time we came back, it felt like we were being watched. The daughters never spoke. John would appear suddenly in hallways or by the staircase, just watching, listening. By the 3rd night, we started sleeping with a chair pushed under the doorknob. Nothing violent ever happened, but it didn't need to. The constant tension, the unspoken threat, the feeling that we were being observed at all times, that was its own kind of horror. When it was time to leave, we didn't say goodbye. We dragged our suitcases down quietly at dawn and didn't look back. To this day, I wonder what was really going on in that house. Why was he so angry? Why were his daughters so silent? And what would have happened if we'd stayed longer? Story 6. The Attic Light. Clara had just moved into a charming, slightly worn-down house on the edge of a quiet village in southern France. She was in her early 30s, worked remotely in graphic design, and had always dreamed of living in a peaceful countryside home. The price had been surprisingly affordable, and the old house had that vintage, cozy feel she loved. It was the kind of place where you could hear the wind brushing through the trees and rain tapping softly on the windows. That night, it was raining steadily, and Clara was curled up on her living room sofa, working on her laptop. The fireplace crackled behind her, casting warm shadows across the room. Everything felt still until she heard a faint click from above. She paused. Probably just the old house. Settling, she told herself. But then came another soft click, slightly louder this time. Her eyes shifted upward. There, in the middle of the ceiling, was the small wooden door to the attic. It was slightly open. Clara froze. She had never opened that door. It required a ladder, one she hadn't even unpacked yet, and yet somehow it was cracked open, revealing only pitch black behind it. She stood slowly, heart pounding, trying to convince herself it was nothing. Maybe the wind pushed it open. But then something made her stomach drop. A faint flicker of light came from the attic, like someone walking with a flashlight. Clara backed away toward the kitchen, grabbed her phone, and called the local gendarmerie. She whispered through the call, barely able to control the panic in her voice. The officers arrived within 15 minutes and inspected the attic. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no flashlight, Nothing unusual. They reassured her that old houses do strange things sometimes. Clara nodded, trying to smile, but she didn't believe them. Later that night, as she tried to sleep, something made her look up again. This time, the attic door was fully open, and from deep inside, she heard someone breathing. Story 7. The Man in the Parking Garage. It was a little past 9 p.m. when Sophia, a 26-year-old nurse, finished her exhausting hospital shift. She worked the evening rotation at St. Mary's Hospital in downtown Lyon, France. Her body ached and her mind was drained. She just wanted to go home, shower, and sleep. Sophia always parked on level B2 of the hospital's underground parking garage. It was usually quiet, dimly lit, and slightly eerie. But tonight, something felt off the moment she stepped in. The overhead lights flickered as she entered the garage stairwell. The soft hum of fluorescent bulbs echoed with her footsteps. She descended slowly, holding her pepper spray tightly, a habit she had picked up after a coworker warned her about recent incidents in the area. When she stepped into B2, it was colder than usual, the kind of cold that seeps into your skin and gives you goosebumps. Her heels clicked against the concrete as she approached her car, a small gray hatchback parked near the corner wall. Then she noticed it, a dark sedan parked just across from hers. It hadn't been there when she arrived. The driver's seat was empty, but the passenger side door was ajar. She scanned the area. Nothing. No movement. No sound. Trying to shake the paranoia, she unlocked her car, but just before opening the door, she heard a noise, a soft, scraping sound, like a shoe dragging along the floor. Sophia froze. The sound came from behind her car. Her heart pounded. Slowly, quietly, she leaned down and peeked underneath. There he was, a man, lying flat under her car, face turned toward her, eyes wide open, smiling. That twisted smile was the last thing she wanted to see after a 12-hour shift. Sophia gasped and stumbled back, her keys clattering to the ground. The man crawled out quickly, too quickly. Dressed in dark clothes, he whispered something she couldn't make out. She screamed. She didn't even try to grab the keys. She turned and ran toward the stairwell, footsteps echoing madly behind her. When she reached the door, it wouldn't open. It was locked. She pounded on the metal, screaming for help. The man was getting closer. Just when she thought he would grab her, a hospital security guard appeared from the elevator, alerted by her scream. The man bolted, disappeared between the rows of cars. They searched the garage, but he was gone. The sedan was stolen. No license plates, no camera footage, nothing. For days after, Sophia couldn't sleep. She started parking on the surface lot, never staying late unless she absolutely had to. She had no idea who he was or what he wanted. To rob her? Kidnap her? Something worse? All she knew was that he was waiting for her, under her own car, smiling. Story 8. Roommate who wasn't there, Amelia, was a 20-year-old literature student at a small college in the outskirts of Dublin. She had just moved into a new off-campus apartment for the semester, a 2-bedroom unit in an old Victorian-style building, split into flats. Her roommate, Olivia, was scheduled to arrive a week later due to a family emergency. So for now, Amelia had the apartment all to herself. The place was old, creaky, and the pipes made weird sounds at night. But Amelia didn't mind. She liked quiet. She liked reading late into the night and sipping tea by the window while the city lights flickered in the distance. By the third night alone, Amelia began to feel watched. It started with little things. She'd leave her bedroom door open before going to class and come back to find it shut. One morning, she walked into the bathroom and noticed steam on the mirror, as if someone had taken a shower, but she hadn't. And then there was the smell, a faint trace of men's cologne. She thought maybe it was just in her head. Old building, pipes, ghost smells. She told herself not to be paranoid, but on the 5th night, something changed. She was on the phone with her mother, pacing around her bedroom. Mid-conversation, she paused and asked, "Did you say something?" Her mother replied, "No, why?" Amelia swore she had just heard whispering coming from the hallway. After hanging up, she tiptoed out of her room. The hallway was dark, silent. She turned on the light. Nothing. She walked past Olivia's empty room and noticed the door was cracked open. That was odd. She always kept it shut. She pushed it open gently. There were muddy footprints on the wooden floor. Amelia's stomach dropped. She turned on the light. A blanket had been laid out on Olivia's bed. Someone had been sleeping there. The closet was slightly open, and inside, hanging, was a man's coat. She bolted out of the room, heart racing, called the police. When they arrived, they found signs of forced entry from the back window in Olivia's room, and a backpack hidden under her bed containing men's clothes, snacks, and a burner phone. The man had been living in Olivia's room for days, silently, while she slept just across the hallway. They never found him. And Olivia? She refused to move in after that. Amelia finished the semester living with a new roommate and never, ever left her bedroom door open again. Story 9. The last bus never came. It was almost midnight when Sophie, a 27-year-old graphic designer, stepped off her late-night shift and hurried toward the quiet bus stop on the edge of the industrial district. The streets were mostly empty, just the low hum of city lights and the occasional distant car. The air was cold, and the orange street lamps gave everything a sleepy, washed-out glow. Sophie checked the schedule. The last bus home was supposed to arrive at 12:15 a.m. It was 12:06. She was the only person there. She pulled her coat tighter and stood beneath the flickering street lamp. Her phone had only 8% battery left. She texted her roommate, "At the stop, be home in 30. At 12:14, she heard footsteps behind her, rhythmic, soft, getting closer. She turned. It was a man, tall, mid-30s, wearing a hooded jacket. He didn't say anything, just stopped a few feet away and stood there, staring at the road ahead. Sophie gave a polite nod and looked away, pretending to scroll on her phone. But something about him made her skin crawl. He wasn't checking the bus time. He didn't look at his phone. He wasn't fidgeting like people usually do while waiting. He was just still, watching. After a few minutes, Sophie glanced up again and realized something terrifying. He hadn't blinked once. She could feel his eyes on her. "Do you know what time the bus comes?" she asked, trying to break the tension. He smiled, too wide, too slow, and said nothing. Then, without warning, he took a step toward her. Sophie backed up. "Hey, I don't want trouble," she stammered. He took another step. That's when she ran. Her shoes slammed against the pavement as she dashed into the darkness, heart racing, barely breathing. She didn't look back. She didn't stop running until she found a 24-hour gas station 5 blocks away. There, she called a cab and waited inside, trembling. The bus, it never came. The next day, Sophie checked with the transit authority. There had been no scheduled bus at that stop after 11:45 p.m. She had been standing in a deserted industrial area with no official transport running at that hour. And the man? No cameras, no witnesses, just her and someone who should never have been there. Story 10. Trapped between floors. Elena, a 25-year-old nurse, had just finished a grueling 12-hour night shift at the hospital. It was 3 a.m. and the entire building felt like a ghost town. She lived on the 12th floor of an old apartment complex in the city center. The kind of place where the elevators groaned with age and the hallway lights flickered like a scene out of a horror movie. As she stepped into the elevator, clutching her bag and thermos, she hit the button for her floor. The doors closed, and the elevator jerked hard, then stopped. No movement, no sound. She was stuck. Elena sighed, thinking it was just a brief malfunction, but when she pressed the emergency call button, nothing happened. No beep, no voice, nothing. She checked her phone. No signal. Then the lights flickered. Once, twice, and stayed dim. It was suffocatingly quiet inside, the kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat and every creak of the metal walls. She waited 5 minutes, then 10. Then she heard it, a knock from above. Her breath caught. She looked up at the ceiling hatch. Another knock, faster this time. "Elena," whispered a voice. A cold shiver ran down her spine. No one should know her name. "Elena, open it." She backed into the corner, clutching her bag like a shield. "Who's there?" she shouted. No reply, just another slow, scraping noise, like fingernails dragging across the metal ceiling. And then the light went out completely. She was alone in pitch black. Her flashlight app barely worked. flickering like a dying candle. She aimed it upward, but the hatch was closed tight. The whispering stopped. Then her phone rang. No name, no number. Just unknown. Hands trembling. She answered. Heavy breathing. Elena, the voice hissed again. Closer now. She screamed and dropped the phone. Suddenly, the elevator jolted, dropped an inch, then stopped again. The lights came back. The doors opened, halfway, between the 8th and 9th floor. She squeezed through the narrow gap, bruising her legs, scraping her arms, until she fell out into the corridor, crying, shaking. When she looked back, the elevator was still open, but no one was inside. The next morning, she filed a report. The maintenance worker said the elevator had been out of service. For weeks, no one should have been using it. No signal, no power, no cameras had recorded anything. Elena never took the elevator again, and she still doesn't know who whispered her name. Not all strangers mean harm, but sometimes harm hides behind the friendliest face. If these stories taught us anything, it's this. Trust can be the most dangerous feeling of all. Each woman in these stories lost something. Peace, safety, or even just the illusion that they were in control. These weren't horror movies. They were real, and they could happen to anyone at any time. So next time you're walking alone, waiting at a bus stop, or even heading into your apartment building, pay attention. Trust your instincts, because sometimes fear isn't irrational. It's a warning. If this video made your heart race, if it made you think twice about your own safety, then like, comment, and subscribe. More real-life stories are coming, and you won't want to miss them. Your safety isn't a coincidence. It's awareness.